Hi, it's 4 p.m. and Ben's hand is in front of his camera, which means it's time for the Etch Play weekly live show, coming at you every week, Thursday, 4 p.m. Put it in your diary or your calendar or wherever you keep track of the passage of time. Today's show is another bumper edition. We've got all the latest games industry news for you, including stories about GTA, Loop Hero, and more. And we're also going to be watching some gameplay from Labyrinthine, which is a game that Dan Thomas has been playing. And I'm glad I pronounced that right, or at least I think I did. And later on,
my job to get things wrong.
Yeah, that's why you're here. I'm going to get everything right. You're here to bring me down to earth.
Yeah.
Loot boxes monetization is the discussion point today for the end of the show, which Ben Joy will be sticking around for. Double dose of Ben Joy today. Ben, how are you feeling?
I'm good. I am good. These Thursdays at 4 roll around so very quickly. But again, glad to have you back. 2 weeks in a row. You settling back in? You feeling good to be back on the show?
Yeah, I mean the show I think is better with me on it. No offence. I'm joking.
You're joking, but yeah, absolutely.
I'm joking, but I'm also very much not joking. Shall we do some news?
Let's do some news. That's what we're here for.
Okay. First up then, today's first story is about Loop Hero. So this is a game published by Devolver Digital and developed by 4 Quarters. You may have seen us play it on Twitch already, actually, or on YouTube. We've got some videos up of it. It released on various PC storefronts on March 4th and officially has sold 500,000 units in its first week, which is a very good outcome for an indie game. According to Devolver, the soundtrack has also become the fastest selling soundtrack in the publisher's history. And 4 Quarters, the developers, have said that the team is currently working on a number of additions, including settings and content. Ben, you talked about small teams outperforming expectations on a recent show. Is this another good example, do you think?
I think this is a great example. Yeah, we spoke about that. If you didn't catch the show, you can find that video on our YouTube channel. But yeah, I think this is definitely another great example. I mean, 500,000 in its first week is exceptional. I think what's also incredibly exciting is the selling of the soundtrack. As you know, we talk a lot about extended experiences. Obviously, that is a good example of an extended experience. So to see the game doing so well, and then an element outside of the game also doing so well from such a small team is absolutely fantastic. So hats off to them. And yeah, as you said, you checked it out. If you haven't seen that, go to our YouTube channel, watch that there. We've got so much content on our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
there's got to head there, but not at 4 p.m. on a Thursday.
There's too much content in the world, but the best bits of it are made by Etch Play. Next story then, we've got some FIFA news to report. So you may have seen this in the news. It's quite a big story. Electronic Arts, the publishers of FIFA, have confirmed allegations that Ultimate Team cards are being illicitly sold to players. So Ultimate Team is a mode in the game that enables players to open loot boxes essentially, and you can earn them or you can buy them with special currency. So they're being illicitly sold to players on the black market essentially. Somebody who works for EA in some capacity has been selling them to people for hundreds or even thousands of pounds in certain cases. And obviously that's a very serious allegation. I mean, it's fraud, essentially. EA have now made a statement. They said, the alleged behaviour is unacceptable and in no way do we condone granting or purchasing player items in exchange for money. The practice runs counter to the game's competitive integrity, is a violation of EA's user agreement and is not something we tolerate. They also promised to take action once the investigation has resolved. We're going to be talking about loot boxes more later on in the show, but for now, Ben, what's the most money you'd spend on an item for a game?
I'm not big on spending money for a game. You know me.
You're not big on spending money, full stop.
I'm proud of my Yorkshire roots, so maybe I did if it was really good, maybe like maybe like £2. Like, yeah, I'm not. It's not my thing. I'm not big on it, so I wouldn't spend enough. We'll be talking about the site. There's a fair bit to talk about on the EA side of things.
Yeah. On a recent edition of the show, we also talked about a modder for Grand Theft Auto Online called Toast. We've got an update on his story for you. So the initial story was that he found a way to cut down the game's load times, GTA Online, by up to 70%. And now, according to latest reports in PC Gamer, Rockstar have investigated Toast's work and found that it, this is a quote, did in fact reveal an aspect of the game code related to load times for the PC version of GTA Online that could be improved. So Rockstar have basically taken this fix on. They've said, Thank you very much. We appreciate your hard work. They've also rewarded Toast with a $10,000 bounty for his investigative work. That's about 7,000 Great British pounds. That's usually reserved for people who find bugs, but they're treating this as a bug, basically. It's like, it's not the way it should work. And so thanks very much, Toast, for all your hard work. You've made GTA Online better for everybody. The load times frustrate you, Ben?
They do. It's nothing worse than sitting on the load screen for a long, long time. I think this is a really cool story because when we spoke about this a few weeks ago, we were kind of like, wonder what's going to happen with this. Are they going to take it? Because I remember saying like he'd offered it opens like you can have this because it's going to make it better. So it's cool that they took it, and really great to see. Like it's encouraging for the community that you can make an impact, and it's not like these studios aren't just behind behind a wall and you can't access them or reach them. I think it's just a really positive story. I mean, GTA, it's good, isn't it? It's always seems to be good news with GTA, apart from where's GTA 6.
I think, and you might notice this now that you've got an Xbox Series X. What I find frustrating now is that the Series X has good load times because of the SSD. When you play multiplayer with people who are on old Xboxes with crossplay, it's like Forza it's really noticeable. Like, you load in straight away, and it's like we're just waiting for these other players. So you have to wait for the long load time to finish for everyone before you can play.
I haven't got that far yet. I picked my Xbox up on Saturday last week. So yeah, I haven't got round to the multiplayer side of it yet.
Now that I've got an Xbox Series X, I feel like everyone who's not got an SSD should be banned from online play. You're slowing it down for the rest of us.
You have to play solely with me.
Yeah. Speaking of Xbox, let's talk about the latest additions to Game Pass, and the big one is Outriders. So this is made by People Can Fly. It's coming out April 1st. It's a third-party title, but they've announced that it's coming to Game Pass day one. A prominent example of Microsoft going out there and acquiring third-party titles for the service. There's a demo out there right now. If you want to play the demo, I believe it's still available, so you can go and check it out. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing a real push from Microsoft on Game Pass, understandably, but it's good to see third-party developers and publishers getting on board with it as well. Do you think this is going to pay off for them, Ben?
I would assume it probably has. I mean, we've spoken before about like Game Pass and the deals, and obviously not a lot comes out about the deals because they're all on an individual basis. But we kind of said it's kind of a win-win for game. If you're going on Game Pass, it's because either they want your game and they're paying you a lot of money to get it, or it's a way to get your game a Kickstarter and you'll get some guarantee off the back of it. I think in this case, I'm sure Microsoft have paid a lot of money to get Outriders day one. So I think I would had to guess it's already paid off. I would imagine it's probably already made its money from the deal. It's great to see as a consumer getting games day one on a £11 a month subscription is great. So love to see it.
We'll have to check it out on a future video. And as ever, Ben J will be bad at it.
Always, I'm terrible at games. Except Tetris. I'm great at Tetris.
Except Tetris. Next up then, news about Raymond. So Raymond was previously at Google Stadia, EA and Ubisoft. She was responsible for the Star Wars console and PC games at EA, so including some of the kind of Battlefront series, and helped to create the Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs franchises for Ubisoft. She's founded a new studio. Obviously the Stadia thing didn't work out very well, so she's now found a new studio called Haven, and she's working directly with PlayStation on new original IP. So sort of I guess like a second party studio deal where they're independent, but they've got this deal with Sony to deliver some content for them. And yeah, good to see her landing on her feet. And I think she's a celebrity in the game dev world, so I'm sure people will be excited to see what she does next. What would you like to see out of this new studio? What would you like to see out of original IP for PlayStation?
I mean, that's difficult because you're asking me to come up with an original. You're asking me to come up with an original IP on the spot for something that they're going to spend months doing.
I'm sure they figured out.
I'm not sure, but it's always exciting when a big name in the industry goes off and starts something new and fresh, because it is literally a playground and like what are they going to do next, and the expectations are really high. So yeah, I'm excited to watch this better than everyone else and see what they come up with.
What would I like to see them do? I think PlayStation has really strong pedigree in third-person action, so I think they shouldn't do another one of those. They should do something different. I'm not sure what that would be.
There you go. Just do that, Team Haven, and you're sorted. You should hire Adam.
You should hire me to consult for you as part of Etch Play. We talked about Game Pass a bit earlier, and we've got some good news for PlayStation. Not PlayStation. We've got some good news for PC players, I should say. So it was previously scheduled last year that EA Play was going to come to Xbox Game Pass on PC. It happened on console, but didn't happen on PC at the time for technical reasons. It was delayed. However, it's finally coming to PC tomorrow, so as of tomorrow, PC Game Pass members can now enjoy titles like Titanfall 2, Mass Effect 2, and Star Wars Squadrons, which is also new to EA Play and as by association Game Pass this month. So, I mean, that's great news if you're a PC player and you've got Game Pass. Quiz in. Like they're delivered on something a bit late, granted, but good to see it getting over the line.
Yeah, the collections of games is really strong, and even I was surprised. I noticed this week that like some of the 2K21 games, not from 2K, but the 2021 games have come out on Game Pass. So I downloaded Madden 21. I think NBA 21 is on there as well. So they're pretty new games to be getting on there, and I've got whether the racing games, as you mentioned, Titanfall, the FIFA games. So yeah. Great news if you're a PC player. Have at it.
Yep. This next one's a contentious story. A lot of opinion about this in the Twitter sphere. Research has revealed that 97% of UK games vacancies are based in offices despite the pandemic. So this is not necessarily that you have to be in the office right now, but that the expectation when you take these new roles is that you will be office-based. And I guess that indicates that the vast majority of developers and publishers are confident of a return to normal working conditions. So maybe not expecting to stay fully remote in the way that we've seen other tech companies like Google and Facebook kind of approaching it. We've talked before about how games companies have extreme requirements from like a asset size point of view, and it's difficult to build that infrastructure in people's homes. And maybe it's symptomatic of that, especially on the AAA side. But yeah, it's a fascinating thing because I think a lot of people would expect the games industry to be really adopting remote, and although there are studios that do it, seems like the majority of game studios are still keen on that co-location for creativity and asset sharing. What do you make of this story, Ben?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because ever since everyone was forced into remote, like it stopped being a choice. It was the discussion has always been: is will it return to normal? Is this the new normal, and we're never going back? Stats like this seem to suggest that we are going back, and there's a part of me that feels surprised, and there's a part of me that feels not surprised because we're prone to we do what we know, and we know office work. What would be interesting to see is whether we start seeing more of a blended opportunities in that you can work remote, there's a place to go, and the expectation isn't that you're there all the time.
Yeah.
So then it would make sense, in essence, to open up to remote because we know from the report that how many jobs are going. I think in the UK it was nearly 3,000 jobs are currently being advertised in the games industry. So if only like 50 of those were remote, like if you open it up to remote, you can hire so many more potential exceptionally talented people who aren't in your area.
Yeah.
So by that sense, I'm surprised there's so few remote. Whether it's kind of like, oh, they're listed, this is the location, but actually they're open to remote, and it's maybe just not quite as clear because obviously that's a lot of data to collect. Like that might be skewing it a little bit. But it's going to be interesting to see. As you say, you would possibly expect it would be more, but then there's another part of me which is not surprised. So.
Yeah, I think we've talked. I mean, every month or every week on the show, we have stories about games that are being delayed. So it's obviously really impacting big studios heavily. Like they're taking a real productivity hit, and obviously not all of that's about remote. Like there is a pandemic going on. It's pretty distracting. It's pretty it gets in the way. It's not like it's remote work as usual or as normal as it might have been in another year. But definitely a lot of publishers are feeling the productivity pressures around doing remote work. So we'll see how that continues to shake out. Last news story for the week then, and we always like to end on a Games for Good story. We believe that games are a powerful force for good, And this week's story is that next week is Games Careers Week. Starting on March 26th, the aim is to inspire people from all backgrounds to discover careers in games. So they'll be doing this. It's a non-profit organisation organising open events at game studios, talks, university career shows, career fairs, conferences, game development classes, and exhibitions at the National Video Game Museum. So that's a really exciting thing if you're out there looking to get into the world of games, or you're maybe not sure what you want to do with your life and you think maybe a life in STEM or a creative aspect might be for you. I would definitely encourage you to look into that. It's at gamescareersweek.org. In fact, I'll put a little link in the chat. If you're watching us live on Twitch, you'll get that there. And yeah, great story. We're going to throw to a pre-recorded segment, and this week, you don't have me on it at all. It's Dan Thomas and Pete Keating checking out Labyrinthine, which is a spooky horror game. You have been warned that this game is a little bit scary. If you're not good with horror, you might want to come back in about 10 minutes, which is roughly the length of the clip. But if you enjoy horror and you enjoy watching grown men weep with fear, then this is for you, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes. See you in a bit.
Hello, this is Labyrinthine, a creepy maze-exploring horror-esque game from Valco Studios. I'm here playing with Pete, and we've played through the first kind of area. There's like a big bushy maze that we're wandering around, finding clues, solving puzzles, and yeah, there's some sort of monsters in the maze that chase us down. Do not scare us at all, do they, Pete?
No, I've not been scared once.
No, not in the slightest. So yeah, let's crack on and see how we get on with this next puzzle. So yeah, it's obviously night, and there's these buzzing lights to guide our way. We also have torches and lanterns. We have a little supply of glow sticks we can drop if we want to mark where we've been, which we're not particularly good at doing.
And we're following the golden rule when completing a maze.
Always
stick to the left.
Left shoulder against the wall and keep going. Which kind of goes out the window when a creepy monster comes chasing after us, but...
Especially when the run doesn't feel that much quicker than... hold on.
This gate was closed last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
we can hear the noise. Through the gate or to the... Oh, there he is.
Run!
Oh, there's another one! Oh, my word. So, there we go.
And that was Labyrinthine.
That was Labyrinthine. Thanks for joining us. Right, we'll give that another go. This isn't fair because the camera's on me, so the viewers were able to see my terror. They can only hear yours.
If it was on me, yeah, I saw myself. Okay, so it felt like we could run from one, but then we run into the... Did you see what?
Yeah, I think...
The crazy lady?
No, it was like a skinny string man thing that...
Oh, I thought it was a woman.
Well, I wasn't paying too much attention. I was trying to run, and I ran into a gate.
Let's try not going... Let's break the golden...
Break the golden left-hand rule.
Oh, there's a handbook here.
Okay, so dotted around the maze are these handbooks. And there we go. That's number 4 of 30 in this zone. Oh, my word. Right.
What the hell is that? Oh. All the way's been blocked.
Ah.
Oh, we almost got separated then.
Yeah.
So it's worth saying we've got proximity chat.
Yeah, so if you walk up the path of it and keep talking...
Hello, 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 hello.
So yeah, the further away we get from each other, the quieter the voices, and then we get extra scared when we lose each other. Don't run too far away, Pete.
So, we're left or right, do you reckon?
So this is back to that.
Do we need to get back to that? That device that we found.
Yeah, we found a lever, which all of these gates were closed the first time we walked through here. And then we pulled a lever, and they seem to now all be open, and we seem to have let our friends loose.
I think the lever's up here, isn't it?
So I think there's a...
Right, here it is. I'm going to shut it quick. Oh, you can't pull it back up.
Okay, so we can't shut them back in. And yeah, there's this pedestal here that seems to want us to put some things in it.
So it says, empty pedestal requires 5 seals, unlocks the main gate, hidden in the maze. Farm field, tick. Greenhouse, question mark. Cages, tick. Playground, question mark. Then a 5th. Oh, there's a tape as well. Did you listen to the tape?
Yes, he talks about his child. I think we're trying to find our. We're following in the footsteps of somebody else, and I think they're trying to find their child or something like that. I'm going to be honest. I've not really been paying too much attention to the story.
No, me neither. Okay, so we're back on this way. I assume we got to try and find stuff and turn it on, and then that will light up that.
So yeah, I think each of the zones has a key puzzle. Get through that gets you to the next
Oh, what,
zone.
through the gates?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
It feels narrower, the maze here.
Yeah, certainly. Thick forest.
Oh, this opens up. I don't like the sound effects. Oh, handbook. What is... do we want to go this way or that way?
You lead.
Okay, we'll go this way. It's closest. Oh, that's a mushroom.
So in there,
Oh, what was that?
I think.
Or did the
we've
lock behind you?
Yeah, the way has been blocked now. So there's no turning back.
Let's put a glow stick down here.
Okay, there we go. So we now know that we've been here.
Oh, playing some music. Oh.
So dead end.
Dead end.
Okay.
Yeah. Feels like... Oh, no. Is it getting lighter?
I think we're just walking towards the moonlight at the moment. So.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
This isn't creepy. Oh my god.
Okay.
Look at us.
So we... Oh, my word. You're right.
They all turned and looked at us.
Yeah. Oh, I found a seal.
Oh, there's a tape here.
Okay, so we got one of the seals, a maze, tape.
This is Officer Mills. There's a fucking tea party in here.
Excuse the language.
Like mannequins covered in
Oh, the mannequins are covered
fucking
in
human
skin.
skin.
Oh, wow.
Jesus Christ. God. Robert?
That is creepy, isn't it?
I mean, it's not a tea party I'm particularly excited to be attending.
So do you want to go down here or over there?
Wherever. Let's just get away from the tea party. Creepy clown party.
Looks like it might This is dead end, but there's a handbook.
Very good.
And a chair.
And a creepy chair. I mean, if just where you'd want to have a little sit down and a rest.
Turning. Oh, they don't turn their heads again.
Good.
That was creepy when that happened. Run!
Oh no.
Is she chasing you?
I don't know.
She's chasing us.
Oh, keep
Run
running.
the table.
Oh. There's our creepy friend. Oh, we've split up now. Hopefully, I'll save myself, Pete. So we've now lost Pete in the... Oh, I'm back at the seat. Oh no. So there we go.
Did she get you? I can't hear you when I've died.
Yeah, so I ran thinking you were sacrificing yourself for me, but she chased me up that corridor, the dead end with the seat at the end. So
Why did you run down the dead end?
well, I didn't know which way I was running.
You knew it was a dead end.
Well, I didn't really remember. But there we go. So this is Labyrinthine. Thank you, Valco Studios, for your contributions to my shortened life. And yeah, we'll see if we can get through this. But for now, we'll hand back to the studio. And yeah, thanks for being my guide in this lovely adventure, Pete.
No worries at all. That's fun.
Right, we will speak to you later.
Hello and welcome back. You are watching the Etch Play weekly live show with me, your host Adam Burt, and that was Labyrinthine, played by Dan Thomas and Pete Keating today. This week on the show, we're talking about loot boxes and monetization, so I'm joined again, once more, by Ben Joy, the investigative journalist of the play team, who brings his findings and his facts and his opinions to the show. And we're going to talk about loot boxes. So why don't you kick us off, Ben? What's the deal with loot boxes?
So firstly, I'm sure everyone is aware, but just in case they're not, what a loot box is basically like a virtual treasure chest, which you can buy either for regular human money or like in-game currency. Typically, it is regular human money, which is what everyone calls it. For an undisclosed item, basically, you don't know what you're going to get. And they are quite contentious. They make a lot of money. It was estimated in 2018 by Juniper Research that the global spend on loot boxes was going to reach 50 billion by the end of 2022, which is next year. So it's a decent chunk of change for the gaming industry, but there is quite a lot of contention around them because there are large sectors in and out of the industry who believe that it constitutes gambling and it's wrong, it's ethically wrong. So yeah, there's some back and forth about whether they're right or not. As it stands currently, they're still legal, but the risk is that it's going to be, if it's labelled as gambling, you know, the game's not over, but the game is significant.
Yeah, I guess if these things are judged to be gambling, then they would incur all sorts of restrictions that you maybe wouldn't want on your loot box game. Like, I guess where it becomes a grey area is with underage people, you know, people who are underage to gamble. Like, you know, consenting adults can do whatever they want, but when it's a child with access to their parents' account, is it the right thing that they should be able to, you know, win skins and sell them in some cases on an open market? So there is like a finite amount of money associated with these things at times.
Exactly. The problem you have there, as soon as it is made, if it gets labelled as gambling, anyone under the age of 18 cannot participate. And a lot of these games are, you know, they're on 3+ games. You know, so does the age rating of the game change? How do you police that? It's a minefield, and I don't know what the correct answer is. I have some opinions. I'm not saying I'm an expert because it's a difficult one. So what's happening at the moment is in July of 2020. There was a call for it by the House of Commons to be labelled as gambling. Following that, the government has essentially done a call for evidence where they have given, I think it was an 8-week period, asking a bunch of questions about gamers' experience, potential harms, what current measures are in place to kind of limit any risks. And essentially then they will look over all that evidence and they will make a decision as to whether it will be classified as gambling or not. At the moment, the Gambling Commission are saying it's not gambling for the reason that what is in a loot box is not cold hard cash, and the virtual things inside them do not have a monetary value, so it can't possibly be gambling. The other side of the argument is you are wagering on something that you don't know necessarily what the outcome is, which tiptoes into the definition of what gambling is.
And we know that some of these things do have financial value. Like there is an amount that people would pay for these things. Like the FIFA Ultimate Team is a good example because, you know, EA have said for a long time that it's not money that's being exchanged here. But when you can sell one of those cards for £2,000, like if that's you're not supposed to be able to sell them, but they clearly have a value associated with them to a lot of people.
Exactly. Something is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And we see that for these rare items, people will pay into the thousands. So therefore, it has a monetary value. I think they're going to say, well, we haven't set the price. The market is setting the price. But either way, as far as I'm concerned, that has a monetary value. So you can see where it gets into a grey area very, very quickly. And the Gambling Act 2005, they categorise gambling under a number of sectors, of which I've written them down, which is arcade, betting, bingo, casino, lotteries, and gaming machines. And I've looked through kind of the definitions for each, and it is very difficult to place a loot box into one of them. And which is, I guess, why it's coming up with resistance, why it hasn't just been like, yep, you're right, it's gambling. So it's a very difficult area, and there are big companies like EA who are very much against the stance that it's gambling, and they liken it to, funnily enough, it being like a Kinder Egg. If you buy a Kinder Egg, there's a treat inside, you don't know what it is. So they're essentially saying, how is what we're doing any different to that? And when you put it like that, there's a part of your brain that goes, that's a good point.
I will pay you £2,000 if you get this. You get a specific Kinder Egg thing on the inside. That's what I want. I'm collecting them.
But then, obviously, when you go a bit deeper, like with Kinder Eggs, it's like you've got like a chance of 1 of 6 of getting it. And yes, you can keep buying and buying and buying until you get the 6. But chances are you'll get the 6 eventually. When you go down the route of loot boxes, things have different levels of how rare that they are. And that's when you can get into the cycle of when you want something valuable and it's rare, you have to buy and buy and buy and buy and buy.
For some people.
And you might never get it. And it is, you hear the horror stories of people who spent thousands and thousands of pounds, kids who don't know the impact, and they're spending hundreds to thousands of pounds of their parents' money, not really knowing what they're doing and the impact that it's having. And you can rack that up really, really quickly and still not get what you were looking for. And
Pete in the chat.
There are numerous.
Sorry, I was just going to say that Pete in the chat's made a good point that like it's not the first time that there's been stuff that's aimed at children, which has this kind of surprise mechanic. Like Pokemon cards were really big in the 90s and early 2000s. I guess they probably still are big somewhere. And a similar kind of vibe there, where you're not buying specific cards, you're buying a chance to get the card of your dreams.
Yeah. So there's been some measures kind of voluntarily put in place, shall we say. So as we talked about earlier, there's a probability value for everything in a loot box. Kind of the publisher or the developer can set what the probability value is, be that 0.5%, 1%, 5%, whatever. And historically, there has been no requirement for that to be publicized. So you could literally have like a 0.1% of winning something in a loot box, and you have no idea. You just know it's rare. But now anything in the App Store or the Google Play Store, any games that have loot boxes in, they are required to put a probability measure on the loot box. And the big platforms, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, they all pledged, along with a bunch of developers as well. I don't have the full list of developers, but the big platforms, along with Initiative with Yuki, they pledged for 2020 that any new games going onto their platforms with loot boxes would have to do the same. And I think there was a quote from Yuki about the importance of self-regulation. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of back and forth in the government as to whether it's going to be branded as gambling. Obviously, people in the industry who are profiting off it don't want to see that happen, but equally, there are people in this industry who recognise the need for self-regulation, and at least these kind of steps are being put in place to try and limit any damage, kind of trying to get that win-win scenario where companies can still make money off of this, but try and give consumers more of an awareness of what they're doing and what they're getting involved in.
Yeah, and I guess there's a sense among a lot of developers that if the industry could self-regulate, then it's less likely that the government will force regulations upon them, which is probably what they don't want, because it's better to set your own terms and to be left alone than it is to be forced to act in specific ways by legislation. You talked about the UK's response in terms of the House of Commons and the kind of call for evidence that they're going through at the minute. What about other governments around the world? Like, what are they saying elsewhere in the EU and in America? Have you got any stats on that?
Yeah, so interestingly, Belgium decided they've got very, very strict gambling laws in Belgium, so it's maybe no surprise that they were one of the first to do this, but Belgium have banned loot boxes. Like, you cannot do loot boxes in Belgium. It's just not allowed. I believe you can still have them if it's done with in-game currency that you've earned from playing the game, because you've earned it. You're not spending any hard cash. But they've essentially said, nope, you cannot do loot boxes in this country. And from reading reports stuff around it, like, gamers aren't upset about that. It's fine. Developers seem okay with it. And essentially, what I was reading around it is that gamers are not sorry to see the back of it because they didn't necessarily enjoy it. Even those that participated in it, it wasn't necessarily an enjoyable experience. It was just they were trying to enhance it, and that was a way to do it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm having so much fun with this. So they're quite happy to see the back of it, and that's been in place since 2018. So that's not something new that's happened. So
I suspect companies will care a lot more if more companies follow Belgium's lead, because I mean,
yes,
they're extremely lucrative, aren't they? Like, I guess.
Oh, absolutely.
We've talked about the price of gaming before and how much games cost, and the trend towards monetization of individual items has been like a real seismic shift in terms of how some games make money. You look at something like Fortnite, for example. Fortnite is free. Like, the money they make is on items, and there are a lot of games out there that trade heavily, and FIFA is one of them. Like, games that trade heavily on microtransactions, and loot boxes are a big part of that. Do you have any figures there about the kind of the scale of loot boxes in the industry?
I do, yes. So as I said, it's expected globally to be free and spend. I think what you said there was a really interesting point about the free-to-play. Because that's kind of where it all got started, and that's where the free-to-play games make their money from. Purchases, and loot boxes is one of those. And then it's come across into the console gaming sphere and the PC gaming, where you've bought a game and then you can buy more. And I think that's one of the problems that consumers have with it. It's like, I've paid you anywhere between £40 and £70 for this game, and now you're making me buy more, essentially, to enhance my gaming experience, or in some instances unlock things in the game. That's kind of what kicks it off in Belgium. There was the big hoo-ha about Star Wars Battlefront 2, where there was really high-profile characters like Princess Leia and Darth Vader that you could only get in a loot box, and that doesn't sit well with consumers when they've paid a lot for the money. Yeah. EA is an interesting example, because we talked about it in the news that there is the scandal going on with someone in EA is selling these items from loot boxes for thousands and thousands of pounds. And EA in 2020, $1.49 billion of their net revenue came from FIFA Ultimate Team alone. That's 27% of their entire revenue, just from that one mechanic in one of their games. So that just shows the scale of it. And EA is a really interesting example, because obviously this scandal is and I was reading an article earlier, and GI Biz have kind of written quite a scathing article about what's going on with it, because obviously EA have naturally come out and condemned this, and this is really bad, we're going to do something about this, and the individual is going to be punished. And kind of the article is saying, that's great, but essentially what's happening is someone on an individual level is doing exactly what your business model was set up to do. Have people spend thousands of pounds for something really rare.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like EA are now in a really difficult position because they're condemning what's happened, because what is happening is there's no argument of what is happening is wrong. But then people who are on the anti-loot box side of things now have a weapon in their armor to go, well, what is what they're doing that different from what you are doing? They're just doing it on an individual scale as opposed to this is your business model. So
yeah,
really shaky ground, and it gets, as I've said a couple of times already, it gets really grey very, very quickly.
Yeah, and outside EA, I mean, I guess it seems like it's an industry-wide thing that there's a lot of loot box spend, and I guess we're expecting to see a lot more in the near future.
Yes, we are. What is interesting is, and I think this gets amplified, and it gets amplified because you hear the horror. It's but with anything in any industry, you hear the horror stories. That's what makes the news. What makes the headlines. Ofcom released a report in the middle of 2020, and their report said in the UK, only 6% of children who play games and 4% of adults who play games have ever engaged in loot boxes and made a purchase. So that's a really small number, but that doesn't take away the fact that people still have problems with the ethical side of it, and it's potentially worrying that although it's only a small amount, children are more likely to spend money in games and have maybe less awareness of the impact and actually what they're doing. And there is an argument that could say, if you're getting involved in that at an early age, you set your behaviors when you're young. So if that's something you're engaging with from maybe as young as 6 years old, if you're playing FIFA and you kind of get into that habit, it is easy to see why it can become really destructive really, really quickly and have a big impact on someone's life. As I said before, there are lots of arguments made over and over again. There are links between loot boxes and gambling addiction and gambling problems. So yeah, while the numbers seem small, that's not to play down the potential negative effects it can have and why people are so anti-loot box.
Yeah, and I guess it almost puts into stark contrast, like, if it's that small in terms of the percentage of players, but the profits are that high, you think, well, how much are these people spending? Like, how much are these,
Yeah.
they talk about them as, like, whales, like, how many people who are really hooked into the system, they must be spending a lot of money to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I wish I'd written this down. There was a game, I can't remember what it was. They'd said you could spend you could realistically spend, I think, like £1,000 a week, £5,000 a month. And if you're really invested, like, that can go very quickly. You can do that very quickly. And there was a guy who put a request into EA, kind of a request for his information, and he found out he'd spent like £10,000 over the space of 2 years, like on FIFA Ultimate Team. And he's like, that wasn't worth it. And I guess the problem is if you're doing it like little and often, like £8 here, £10 there, like that can add up really quick, and you could essentially find yourself with a problem without realizing that you have a problem. So yeah, it's a really slippery slope. I'm not sure which side of the fence I sit, because
I feel like you're slamming loot boxes. You're like,
I know, but
you're slamming EA as well, which I feel like you do every time I get you on the show. I'm like, cool it with the anti-EA stuff, Ben.
No, they won't give us FIFA. But no, like I said, I can very much see the argument and I can see the negatives. But on the other side, by the law, it's not doing anything wrong. There are measures that can be put in place to limit spending. There are locks that parents can put on games to limit spending. So it is really into a grey area where is it the business's responsibility to stop people from spending their money, or should people be able to do that themselves? That said, you can see how incredibly addictive it is, and should businesses be exploiting that? That's the two different arguments, and I can see both sides to an extent. So I'm not making a groundbreaking, this is the side of the fence I sit on. I'm just going to sit on the fence as normal.
Well, there you go, folks. Ben Joy hates loot boxes, and he hates you if you use them. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching. If you like the show, if you liked any part of it, the discussion, the news, or the gameplay, follow us using the purple button down in the bottom right. Right now, if you press that button, you'll become a follower and you get notified every time we go live, which is mostly the show, but sometimes we do other streams as well. And yeah, make sure you check us out. Other videos on Twitch, other videos on YouTube, and we will see you right back here at 4 p.m. next Thursday. Same time every week. Easy to remember, 4 p.m. Thursday. Thanks very much, Ben, for joining me.
No worries, thank you for having me.
And I've been Adam Burt, your host for today, and we will see you again very soon. Goodbye. Wave, Ben. Do some waving.